Good evening, friends. We find ourselves often on a quest to become better versions of ourselves. We search for the right habits, the right tools, the right philosophies to lead us toward growth. But in truth, the path to a better you is not just about adopting new practices. It is about releasing behaviors that bind us, that cloud our clarity, and that prevent us from fully experiencing the life that is unfolding right before our eyes. Tonight I invite you to consider 7 behaviors, 7 habits that once recognized and released will bring you closer to the authentic, vibrant life you are capable of living. 1. Let go of the need for control. Many of us are taught that life is something to be managed. We must control our environment, our emotions, and even the people around us. But in truth, the more we attempt to control, the more we limit our experience. Our life is not a machine to be fixed, but a river to be followed. Let go of the illusion that you can control everything, and instead allow yourself to be carried by the current. Flow with it. 2. Avoid the trap of constant comparison. In our connected world, we are constantly bombarded with images of others' lives, their successes, their achievements, their joys. It is so easy to fall into the trap of comparing our own journey to theirs. But here's the truth: no one else's path is your path. You are unique, and your journey is yours alone. To compare is to forget the beauty of your own story. Let others live their lives, and you live yours without comparison. 3. Stop chasing perfection. Perfection is a mirage on the horizon, always distant, always unattainable. We spend so much energy chasing it, striving to be flawless in every way. Yet in our pursuit of perfection, we miss the richness of our imperfection. Embrace your flaws, your quirks, your humanity. This is where true beauty lies, in the raw, unpolished moments of life. 4. Do not dwell in the past or future. So often we are trapped in memories of what has been or anxieties about what might be. We lose ourselves in what was or what could be, forgetting the only time we truly have the present. Right now, as you sit here, life is unfolding in its fullest form. Do not let it slip by unnoticed. Be here now. The past and future are mere illusions, only the present is real. 5. Let go of unresolved emotions. We carry with us the weight of unresolved emotions, the anger, the fear, the regret, and these emotions build up layer upon layer like stones in a heavy backpack. The more we carry, the more we are weighed down. If you want to move forward with ease, it is time to release those emotional burdens. Feel what you feel, express it, and let it go. Only then can you walk with a lighter heart. 6. Release attachment to outcomes. We live in a world obsessed with results, where success is measured by outcomes, by achieving specific goals. But in this pursuit of results, we often forget the joy of the journey itself. Let go of the need to control outcomes. Instead, embrace the process, knowing that whatever unfolds is as it should be. When we release our attachment to outcomes, we open ourselves to a far greater freedom. 7. Don't identify with the ego. The ego is a clever storyteller. It tells us who we are, what we should be, and how we fit into the world. But in truth, the ego is just a mask, a fleeting identity we wear. It is not the essence of who you are. When we identify with the ego, we limit ourselves to the confines of this story. Let go of the need to be someone, simply be. We often live under the illusion that we can control the events of our lives, that we can shape every detail, predict every outcome, and direct every moment according to our will. From the smallest of decisions, what to wear, what to eat, what to say, to the largest, the career path we follow, the relationships we build, the way we plan our future, we convince ourselves that we hold the reins, that we are the architects of our destiny. But the truth is, the more we cling to this illusion of control, the more we lose touch with the essence of life itself. Control, in many ways, is a comforting idea. It gives us a sense of safety, a feeling that we can manage our environment, keep ourselves protected from the unpredictable chaos of the world. But life, in its truest form, is not a machine to be fine-tuned or a puzzle to be solved. Life is a river, wild, untamed, ever-flowing, and unpredictable. No matter how tightly we grip the oars, we are never truly in control of the course it takes. We are, at best, passengers on the journey, carried by the current, shaped by the current, shaped by the forces of nature, circumstance, and chance. The more we resist this, the more we fight against it, the more we exhaust ourselves in vain attempts to steer the river where it does not wish to go. In our effort to control, we often find ourselves at odds with the present moment. We become so fixated on how things should be, how we think they must unfold, that we miss the richness of the here and now. We forget that the beauty of life lies not in its predictability, but in its mystery. The future is an unknown and infinite array of possibilities, and the more rigidly we cling to our vision of it, the more we shut ourselves off from the unexpected gifts that life can bring. If we approach life with an open hand, rather than a clenched fist, we invite the possibility of surprise, of wonder, of something greater than our limited minds can conceive. When we surrender the need for control, we open ourselves to the flow of life. This is not to say that we should abandon all responsibility or action, far from it. There is a profound difference between living intentionally and trying to control the outcome of every action. Intentionality is about being fully present, about making decisions with awareness, about acting from a place of clarity and purpose. Control, on the other hand, is driven by fear, a fear of uncertainty, a fear of not knowing what lies ahead, a fear of not having things unfold according to our expectations. Control often emerges from the belief that we must impose our will on the world in order to ensure that it unfolds the way we want. But this is a misguided belief. The paradox is that the more we try to control, the more we lose control. When we grip life too tightly, we stifle its natural flow. We create friction between ourselves and the world around us, making the journey harder than it needs to be. When we let go, when we loosen our hold, we discover that life, in its own mysterious way, often leads us exactly where we need to go. It may not always be where we planned, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the greatest blessings are those that arrive unexpectedly in forms we never anticipated, from directions we never considered. Letting go of the illusion of control requires trust that the universe or life itself will unfold as it should. It does not mean being passive or resigned to whatever comes. Rather, it is an acknowledgement that we are part of something much larger, something beyond our comprehension. It is about understanding that we cannot control every variable. And that is okay. In fact, it is more than okay, it is liberating. When we surrender the need to control, we make space for spontaneity, for creativity, for joy. We stop living as though life is a problem to be solved and start experiencing it as a mystery to be lived. In the end, the illusion of control only limits us. It keeps us trapped in a mental prison, constantly struggling against the tide of life, constantly fighting against the forces that are beyond our control. But when we release that struggle, when we allow ourselves to be carried, we find that the journey becomes far more beautiful, far more fulfilling, and far more meaningful than we ever could have planned. Let go of the illusion of control, and you will find freedom in the flow. We often carry the weight of expectations on our shoulders as though they are a necessary part of life, something we must bear in order to succeed or be worthy. These expectations come from many places: society, family, peers, even from ourselves. We are expected to achieve certain milestones by a certain age, to behave in particular ways, to follow specific paths that are laid out before us as if they were the only ones worth taking. But the burden of these expectations is often heavy, and it is a weight that holds us back from the freedom and fulfillment we seek. It is easy to believe that these expectations are the very foundation of our purpose, that to meet them is to achieve success, and to fall short is to fail. Yet the more we carry them, the more we find ourselves confined by the very structures that were supposed to lead us toward happiness. Expectations shape our view of the world, and they shape our view of ourselves. From an early age, we are taught to conform, to meet certain standards in order to be accepted, to fit in, to be seen as successful or competent. Society has its own set of rules, a script that most of us are expected to follow: get a good education, find a stable job, buy a house, get married, have children. These are the markers of a successful life, the milestones we are encouraged to reach. If we follow the script, we are rewarded with approval and acceptance. If we fall off course, we are often met with disapproval disappointment, or worse, the feeling that we have failed in some fundamental way. But these expectations, though they may seem harmless or even beneficial, come with a hidden cost. The pressure to live up to these ideals can be suffocating, and the weight of constantly trying to meet them can steal away our sense of authenticity. We begin to live for others, to shape our choices not based on our true desires or passions, but on what others expect of us. We begin to define our worth by external standards, measuring ourselves against a yardstick that is not truly ours to carry. And the more we try to meet these expectations, the further we drift from who we really are. This pressure to live up to external expectations often creates a sense of inadequacy, a feeling that we are never enough as we are. We believe that in order to be worthy, we must do more, achieve more, be more, always striving towards some future version of ourselves that is somehow better, more successful, more acceptable than who we are in the present moment. But in this endless striving, we lose touch with the richness of our current experience. We forget that we are already enough. We forget that we are whole and complete just as we are, without needing to measure up to someone else's idea of what we should be. There is a deep irony here. The more we chase these external goals, the less fulfilled we often feel. We achieve one thing, only to find that we have already moved the goalpost. The expectations we set for ourselves or accept from others are rarely satisfying once attained. The pursuit itself becomes the goal, and we end up stuck in a cycle of striving without ever feeling truly content. Each achievement becomes a stepping stone to the next, and before long we are so focused on the future that we forget to appreciate the present. The weight of expectations also keeps us stuck in comparison. When we are constantly measuring ourselves against others, we are forever bound to a race that has no finish line. We are competing not with our own potential, but with the imagined successes of others. This comparison is a never-ending trap. There is always someone who seems to have more, be more, do more. And in that comparison, we miss the beauty of our own path. Our own journey, with all its imperfections, is just as valid, just as meaningful, and just as worthy of celebration. But when we are weighed down by external expectations, we fail to see that. We forget that the only person we need to measure ourselves against is the person we were yesterday. Letting go of the burden of expectations does not mean abandoning all goals or aspirations. It means releasing the need to validate ourselves through external measures. It means giving ourselves permission to define success on our own terms, based on what brings us true joy, peace, and fulfillment, rather than on what others think we should do or be. When we release the weight of these imposed expectations, we create space for our authentic selves to emerge. We are no longer tethered to a script that was never ours to begin with, and we can begin to live a life that is true to our own desires, our own values, and our own unique path. The freedom that comes from releasing the burden of expectations is profound. It allows us to be fully present in our own lives, to experience each moment as it comes without the pressure of future outcomes. We begin to understand that our worth is not determined by what we achieve or how others perceive us, but by the simple fact of our being. And in that realization, we find the peace and contentment that have eluded us for so long. Let go of the burden of expectations, and you will discover that you were never meant to live anyone else's life. You were meant to live yours. Perfection is a concept that has been deeply ingrained in our culture. From the images we see in the media to the expectations we place on ourselves, we are led to believe that there is an ideal state we must reach, a perfect version of ourselves or our lives that we should be striving toward. Perfection seems to be the gold standard, the ultimate measure of success, beauty, and worth. But in truth, perfection is not something that can be achieved, nor is it something that should be pursued. It is a myth, an elusive ideal that distracts us from the deeper truths of who we are and the reality of what it means to be human. The myth of perfection begins early in life, often through subtle messages we receive from parents, teachers, and society. We are told that in order to be loved, accepted, or successful, we must be flawless. We must excel in school, be attractive, maintain perfect relationships, and present ourselves as confident, capable individuals at all times. These expectations create a kind of pressure that pushes us to constantly improve, to never show weakness or vulnerability, and to hide the parts of ourselves we deem imperfect. As we grow older, the myth of perfection becomes even more ingrained. We see it in the polished images of celebrities, in the curated lives presented on social media, and in the constant pursuit of outward success. The idea of being perfect, whether in our appearance, our achievements, or our character, becomes a goal that we feel we must constantly chase. But here's the reality: perfection is unattainable. It's an illusion, a construct of the mind that has no tangible existence in the real world. Every person who has ever lived has imperfections, flaws, and shortcomings. These imperfections are not signs of failure, they are part of the human experience. They make us unique, they make us relatable, and they make us real. In fact, it is our imperfections that often create the most beauty, the most depth, and the most connection with others. A perfect life, a perfect body, a perfect personality, these things do not exist in nature. They are ideals we create in our minds, and they are not reflective of the true richness of human existence. The pursuit of perfection, however, can be deeply destructive. It sets us on a never-ending treadmill of comparison, self-judgment, and dissatisfaction. The more we try to attain perfection, the more we discover how elusive it is, and the more frustrated we become. We push ourselves harder, striving for a standard that keeps shifting further and further away. And the more we chase after this ideal, the more disconnected we become from the reality of our own lives. We forget to appreciate the beauty in the messy, the imperfect, the real. We lose sight of the truth that life is not about achieving some static state of perfection, but about embracing the ebb and flow of our experiences, learning from our failures, celebrating our successes, and growing through it all. There is also a deeper cost to the myth of perfection. It robs us of the ability to be fully present. When we are constantly focused on fixing ourselves, on improving, on becoming something else, we miss the richness of the present moment. We are always thinking about what we could be, rather than what we already are. We forget to enjoy the process, to savor the journey, and to recognize the value in the imperfect moments that make up our lives. Perfection, in this sense, takes us out of the here and now and places us into an idealized future that may never come. The myth of perfection also fosters a sense of isolation. When we believe that we must present a flawless image to the world, we feel as though we must hide our true selves, our vulnerabilities, our flaws, our mistakes. We become trapped in a cycle of performing, of pretending, rather than being genuine. But the truth is, it is our vulnerabilities and imperfections that make us human, that make us connect with others. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect, we give others permission to do the same. We create space for authenticity, for true connection, and for shared understanding. Embracing imperfection is liberating. It is the recognition that we do not have to be perfect to be worthy, to be loved, or to be successful. It is the understanding that our flaws and mistakes are part of what makes us whole. When we let go of the myth of perfection, we open ourselves to the fullness of life, its joys and sorrows, its challenges and triumphs. We stop chasing an ideal that is forever out of reach, and instead we start to live fully in the moment, appreciating the beauty in our imperfections. True freedom comes when we release the need for perfection and allow ourselves to be exactly as we are: imperfect, vulnerable, and beautifully human. In the end, perfection is not a goal to be reached, but a barrier to be broken. It is not something to strive for, but something to let go of. When we do, we find that life becomes richer, deeper, and far more rewarding than we ever imagined. The myth of perfection may have held us captive for a time, but the truth of our imperfection is where the real beauty lies. Let go of the need to be perfect, and you will discover a life far more meaningful than any ideal could ever promise. In our modern world, we are constantly pulled in many directions by work, social media, relationships, and our own inner thoughts. We are rarely in the present moment. Instead, we spend much of our time caught in the past or the future. The past is full of memories, regrets, and unresolved emotions, while the future is filled with anxieties, plans, and the endless pressure to prepare for what lies ahead. Yet, in the midst of all this noise, the only place where life truly happens is the present. The present moment is the only reality we can actually experience, yet it often slips through our fingers unnoticed, as we chase after something that is always just beyond our grasp. The power of presence lies in our ability to be fully engaged in the here and now. When we are present, we are not thinking about what we did yesterday or what we need to do tomorrow. We are simply here, experiencing life as it unfolds. This state of being allows us to fully engage with the richness of each moment, to connect deeply with others, and to feel the depth of our own lives. The present moment is where everything of real value occurs, whether it's savoring the taste of food, feeling the warmth of the sun on our skin, or engaging in a meaningful conversation with another person. These moments are fleeting, but they are the essence of life. Being present is a conscious act. It requires us to quiet the constant chatter of our minds, to let go of the distractions and worries that pull us away from the now. This is not always easy, as our minds are conditioned to jump from one thought to the next. But when we make the effort to focus on the present, we discover that there is so much more to experience than we might have realized. We begin to notice the small details, the sound of a bird outside, the feeling of the earth beneath our feet, the texture of a leaf in our hand. These simple, often overlooked moments are where we find a sense of peace, clarity, and joy. Being present also allows us to connect with others on a deeper level. When we are fully engaged in a conversation without distractions or the temptation to check our phones, we create space for genuine connection. We listen attentively, respond thoughtfully, and are truly open to the experience of another person. In a world where many interactions are superficial or rushed, the power of presence in our relationships can transform them. It allows us to show up for others, to be fully available, and to offer our attention as a gift. Living in the present doesn't mean we abandon all plans for the future or ignore the lessons of the past. It means we learn to embrace the richness of the present without being consumed by what has already happened or what might come next. It is an act of mindfulness, a way of being that brings us back to our true selves, free from the distractions and expectations that often define our lives. The power of presence lies in its simplicity. It is a reminder that life is not something to be rushed through or managed, but something to be lived fully, moment by moment. When we make the choice to be present, we open ourselves to the fullness of life and the deep, quiet beauty that exists in every moment. And in this we find peace, clarity, and a profound sense of connection to the world around us. In our lives, comparison often becomes a quiet yet pervasive force, shaping how we see ourselves and others. It seems almost natural when we encounter someone who is doing well, we look at our own achievements and wonder if we measure up. We compare our bodies to those we see on magazines, our careers to those of our peers, our happiness to the seemingly perfect lives portrayed on social media. It's almost as if comparison has become an inevitable part of human nature. Yet the more we engage in this process, the more we lose sight of who we truly are. We forget that our worth is not defined by how we measure up against anyone else, but by the unique path we walk and the journey we are living. The trap of comparison often arises from the belief that there is a right way to live or a standard we must meet in order to be worthy. Society, with its endless benchmarks of success, whether in terms of wealth, appearance, achievements, or relationships, reinforces this notion. We look around and feel as though we are constantly being measured against others. Do I have as much as they do? Am I as successful? Do I look as happy? When we constantly compare ourselves to others, we forget that we are all on different paths, shaped by unique circumstances, experiences, and values. No two journeys are the same, yet comparison encourages us to believe that there is one ideal way to live, one perfect version of ourselves we should be aspiring to. What happens when we compare ourselves to others is that we immediately create a gap between who we are and who we think we should be. This gap, however, is based on assumptions, judgments, and societal ideals that have no real bearing on our true worth. It makes us believe that we are not enough as we are, that we need to change, to be more, to do more, in order to measure up. This belief is damaging because it keeps us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. When we feel that we are not enough, we constantly strive for something outside ourselves, always looking to others as a benchmark for our success or happiness. But in this process, we lose touch with our own gifts, our own uniqueness, and the qualities that make us who we truly are. In the age of social media, this trap is even more potent. We are presented with carefully curated snapshots of others' lives, often highlighting only the good, the glamorous, and the ideal. What we fail to see is the full picture, the struggles, the challenges, and the imperfections that everyone faces behind the scenes. When we compare ourselves to these filtered versions of reality, we set ourselves up for disappointment. No one's life is perfect, but when we only see the highlight reel, it's easy to feel as though we are falling short.